within the well. And my main research area is innovation, and I am doing here a research visit with, hosted by Professor Kyung Lee at Seoul National University. Thank you for the invitation to this seminar.
Thank you for coming early in the morning here. Yeah. Okay. So please, yeah. Beautiful country, yeah.
Good morning. My name is Ioanna Kastelli. I come from Greece, from the National Technical University of Athens. And I'm also actually appointed at another university in the center of Greece. In our university, we work a lot on innovation, and I'm also a member of the Technology Transfer Office of the university. So we have a lot of experience with, especially with spin-offs, and we have some interesting activities at the Technical University related with startups that originate from and are based on research outcome of the university. So I'm very happy to be here, and I find it a great opportunity to share experience with you. And I would like to thank you and thank also Professor Kun Lee for inviting me to be here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. So yeah, the Spain. Wow. Yeah. So sorry, this is my the future hope to be there. Yeah.
Really?
I haven't ever been there. Beautiful country.
I hope you managed to do that. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks a lot for this opportunity to be here. It's a first time having a seminar this time in the morning, so it's also a very good opportunity in that sense. My name is Ángel Valareso. I come also, as my colleague Isabel Álvarez, I come from University Complutense of Madrid. This topic is especially important for me because I did a late transition from the private sector. I was an entrepreneur at that time. I did a late transition to the academic. So now my research focus on digital economics. I focus my research on ICT adoption, both individuals and from the private point of view. So it's a very good idea to have this collaboration between the academics, between the researchers, and with the entrepreneurship and all this private line of things. So it's, thanks a lot for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Okay, yeah. So here, I'd like to ask Ahmed Osman to give a greetings from Egypt. Ahmed Osman, can you hear us? Okay, please.
Yes, hello, Kishan. Can you hear me?
Okay. Ambassador Oden is here.
Yes, I think.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yes, good morning, everyone, and good evening from Egypt. I hope you are all well. Thank you, Kishan, for the kind invitation. I'm looking forward to listening to Ayman's presentation, and I look forward to seeing you all very soon. Thank you very much, Kishan.
Hopefully, you can make a time to come here in person.
I hope so.
Okay.
I hope so soon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
우리 박 교수님, 우리 교수, no? 우리 허문명 국장님, 네, 안 하실래? 하세요. Actually, reporter He is one of most famous person for the Korean entrepreneurs. Actually, he has a lot of interview about Lee Byung-chul, Lee Gun-hee, the founder of Samsung. So he published many books about Korean entrepreneurs. Yeah. So I urged her to come to join with us. 잠시 한마디 하세요. Okay. 네, 자, 영어 잘하시잖아요. 네.
Well, yeah. Thank you for inviting us. I wrote 2 books about the Samsung and Samsung founder Lee Gun-hee story. So now I am writing in ongoing. So I round about from Professor Kim. So thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
책 제목 한번. 네.
경제사상가 이건희라는 바이오그래피가 2년 전에 나왔고요. 작년에 이건희 반도체 전쟁. 네, 그래서 이제 세 번째 올해 책 마무리해서 전집을 내려고 생각하고 있습니다. Thank you.
She is the professional about Samsung electronics particularly. If you are interested in researching about Korean entrepreneurship, yeah. So please contact with him. Actually, the very important person is coming here. Yeah. Actually, he is. You know that there is the biggest, largest Korean academic society for business administration. So actually, the Kim Yeon-sung is the president-elect of Korean Academic Society for Business Administration. So next year, he is in charge of Korea. In Korea, in Korean industry. Yeah. Okay, so I am asking him to give us some speech to everybody. Okay.
Good morning. Good to see you. I'm Yeon-sung Kim from Inha University. So, as he introduced me, I'm a president-elect of KASBA. It's an academic society for Korean business administration. Thank you very much. I hope to continue and develop this forum this year and next year, and I hope see you again in the near future. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, yeah. 우리 저 한마디씩 안 하실래?
Good morning. My name is Chong-Hae Jang. I'm running a education course for the international medical tourism. You know that Korea is very famous for the country of the advanced in medical area, and we need many interpreter, English interpreter, or in many other languages for the patients from abroad. So I have been running for about 10 years, and I have many students, and they are working for the hospitals and then many other small companies. And actually, I am a big fan of Professor Kim. So I'm ready to learn everything from every classes. So it's very nice to meet you, even though it's very early in the morning, but I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the inviting me.
Professor Kim Hwa-kyung is here. Yeah. Okay. So he avoided the.
Yeah, good morning. Nice to meet you, everyone. Actually, I have a work experience for the Samsung Group for 10 years. I'm very much interested in lots of convergence management. And now I'm working for the Jeju International University professor. I'm very glad again, and thank you.
Jeju Island. Yeah, Jeju, yeah. If you are interested in visiting Jeju Island, please contact with her. Okay. Yes. So this is very important. Okay. Then we are going to start the Ayman's presentation about the origin of Korean entrepreneurship. Very importantly, origin. Yeah. So who is the origin? So the characteristics of Korean entrepreneurship is about dynamic capability. So you know the Japan is very good at the organizational capability to keep their own technology continuously. But Korea is changing, which is a dynamic capability. So I think the Ayman is going to introduce what is the origin of dynamic capability or pivoting. So hopefully you can get answer from his presentation. Ayman, okay, time is yours.
Good morning, good morning. Oh, I need to use this. No, no. Oh, okay. Kishan, you just press? Where do you press? Okay, so good morning. I think they're figuring it out. So I'll just introduce myself. So good morning, everybody. My name is Ayman Tarabishi. I play multiple hats, but let me start with the first hat. As I'm the president and CEO of the International Council for Small Business, and ICSB, International Council for Small Business. A little bit about the organization, so you understand the context of it. ICSB was founded in 1955, so it's a quite old organization, and our mission is to support SMEs worldwide and promote and support entrepreneurs and SMEs worldwide. And we are all over the world. I think we have even members from Spain and Greece as well, academics, professors, educators, researchers, and policymakers. And as we are global, part of our initiative is to go around the world to do conferences and events and activities and research. And ICSB owns two journals, the Journal for Small Business Management, JSBM, and JISP, the new journal, or the Journal of the International Council for Small Business. JSBM is the oldest and largest academic journal promoting entrepreneurship research and SMEs. So if you know about the journal or you've submitted there, ICSB owns this journal for quite some time. And our relationship to the United Nations and Ambassador Ojun is when the Sustainable Development Goals were released in 2015, and ICSB worked with the United Nations to advocate more for small business involvement as part of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and Ambassador Ojun was part of the initiative here, and he helped us create what we call now Micro, Small, Medium Enterprises Day, or MSME Day, similar to Women's Day on March 8th. Now there's June 27, which is Small Business Day. And so we helped create it together. So our path is almost 9 or 10 years. So it's been a decade. Feels just like yesterday. And so we continue to advocate and to work with SMEs worldwide. Some of our members, Ahmed Osman, which was here earlier, and I think he's still on, hosted our World Congress in 2019 in Cairo, Egypt. And he was past chair of ICSB. So you could see it's like a global family. And so my relationship to Korea and how this all came to be is I used to come to Korea a lot, and I still do, to work with our affiliate, to work with our members on many initiatives on SMEs. So if you are a visiting professor or a scholar, you would come to a university, but as ICSB would come to our partner groups here in Korea, and they can be from different schools and universities. So it's a different way of engaging the world. So that's a little bit about ICSB. If you're interested to learn more, I'm around afterwards. We can talk and engage in activities or ideas to do more. And we're always welcome. I think Kishan set the stage. He goes, I've never been to Spain. So what he's saying is here, he wants ICSB to go to Spain. And therefore, the pressure is on you now to figure it out. So he's very smart man, how he says it. So that's one hat. That's the ICSB hat. The other hat, I'm a deputy chair of the Department of Management at George Washington University, Washington, D.C. So I am a full researcher. I'm an academician, and I do research, I write papers, I write books, and my area of focus, of course, is on small business and entrepreneurship, and leadership, and innovation. And so that's what I do. And so two hats. And so today, with my presentation here, and we need to go back with the slides and go from the beginning. Yeah, go all the way back from the beginning. From start. Okay, so we'll get there. So let me set the context here of the research and what's going on. So I, as an academician, always coming to Korea, and was always fascinated about entrepreneurship in Korea. You know, why, what happened, how did Korea become such a global player? Why are they always leading? You know, it's always a curiosity. As a researcher or as a professor, you always have an inquisitive mind as to why things happen. So I'm gonna go with my presentation here. How much time do I have, Kishan? 30 minutes, okay, great. So I'll open it up for discussion as well. So I'll get into this, but I just wanna admit here, presenting something at 7 o'clock in the morning is a lot of pressure, right? You don't get academicians out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning to come here for a presentation at 7 a.m. in the morning. So maybe you're a little bit tired, but I am under a lot of stress. So I have to make it really, really good. So then you say it was worth it here. And I want to just thank Kishan for adding all this pressure to me here, especially from last night when we went out to a long dinner. Okay, so I'll have to be sharp. All right, so origin of Korean entrepreneurship. How did it start? So oh, thank you. Okay, how did it start? Accidentally. It was a pure accident. And I come to Korea now for the last 10 years plus, right? And I would always go visit many locations, many different companies, many different universities. I get to meet a lot of people because of the privilege of Kishan Kim, giving me the window to Korea and everything, and meeting a lot of people. So I would always be meeting, engaging with a lot of people. I visited Samsung, I visited many different locations, and it was always fascinating to meet a lot of people. But in the back of my head, I would always ask myself, how? You know, how did this all happen? And the answer was very simple, right? They would tell me a very simple answer. Ayman, it happened because of the miracle on the Han River. And I'm like, okay, it's a miracle. That's wonderful. That's the explanation. I'm gonna get to the Korean, transformation from a society that was basically in ruins to where it is today, right? So it was a miracle on the Han. So I would always drive by the Han River and see if there's a mermaid down there or there's something going on down there. Maybe we get access to that miracle and get more. But 2 years ago, almost a year and a half ago, and I was kindly invited by Kishan and I think other colleagues is to go visit Jinju City. Okay, so I was told, hey, Ayman, we should go to Jinju City. You need to go visit it. So I said, great, it's another trip. And we go to, and I said, what's in Jinju? They go, oh, it's very pretty, it's very nice, but there's something special about it. So I'm like, maybe it's the geography, the location. I get to see a castle. I get to see something of that geographic location. And we go to Jinju, and they drive me around. And then they say, let me show you some houses. And I'm like, okay. So we stop into a little area, historical area, nothing extravagant, right? And I'm walking with the tour. And the tour guy stops and he goes, this is where the founder of Samsung was. And I was like, oh, how wonderful. This is so nice. The founder of Samsung lived here. So I took out my phone, my Samsung phone as well. Just maybe I get sponsored by Samsung now and I get more gadgets. And I took pictures of the house, okay? And then literally 10 steps afterwards, where I'm thinking I'm done, right? And they point and say, oh, and Ayman, this house is the founder of LG. I'm like, whoa, what a coincidence, right? Two of them next door to each other. It's just amazing how this is a great story, right? And so I took out my Samsung phone. I should have an LG phone now, right? And I took pictures of the house as well, and I made them take pictures of me, of course, in both houses. So I'm like, this is a wonderful connection. The trip is worth it. I get to see two houses at the same time, right? And then I walk a little bit more, and they're like, oh, and Ayman, here's the house of the founder of Gold Star. I'm like, come on now, right? What's going on, right? And then, and I take the phone again, and the story repeats, right? And I'm now confused which house is which. So I'm like, okay, first picture, second picture, third pictures. And then I walk some more, right? And they show me the other house, which was Hyun Lee's house, right? And I'll explain it a little bit here. So right there, I was awestruck. You know, I was like in a little bit of a daze. How can it be that the four founders of the four largest conglomerates in Korea literally live on the same street in Jinju City? Something is wrong. Something is not all right. Something is off, right? I'm like, I've been coming here for 10 years. Why did not anybody tell me about this, right? What happened these last 10 years? Now you inform me about this phenomena or this history. They're like, oh, everybody knows. And my question is, I think you all know, but we international people have no idea. And look, I think the Spanish, my Spanish colleague here is saying, never heard of it. And the Greek, with all the Greek history, they're like, we should know everything about history and Greece, and why didn't we know about this? All right, so this was kind of a shock to me to see why all four of them came here. And then here comes the bombshell. This is not just a surprise. Here comes the bigger surprise. They say, oh, and by the way, Ayman, all of them went to the same elementary school. All right, so my suspicion is, initially I thought it has something to do with the water in Jinju. Something is with the water in Jinju that made them such successful. So I'm like thinking something with the water, but it's not the water. And I said, of course, it's the elementary school. Of course, it's the teacher in the elementary school. Of course, it's the education in the elementary school. I'm like, I'll investigate this more. But it can't just be in elementary school because it doesn't continue the whole trajectory, right? So what I'm gonna do now is give you this story, right? It's not just an academic paper, it's more of a historical research paper. And it's a storyline of what happened, why it happened, and where are we now, and what the future might be. Okay, so that's kind of my presentation. But to do so, I am not from Korea. You know, I'm an international researcher. I'm Italian Egyptian, so I understand history. So for me to do a paper like this and do research like this, I needed a lot of support from high-level intellectuals, high people that understand the Korean history, the context, understand the nuances, you know, the little side details that make a big difference. So as you can see from here, from the different authors of the paper, there's four of us right here. And first is Ambassador Ojun, which helped a lot with the paper to set the context of the paper, to set kind of the framework of what to look at and how to look at it. So the context lens. And then the mayor of Jinju, because after the site visit, I went and we had an official visit with the mayor, and he is very transformative. He understood that the history is a platform for the future, right? So he basically allowed me to have full access to the city, to the staff of the city in terms of research, in terms of resources, in terms of everything. So he was very welcoming, and he understood that this is a major project. And then last year we had a big event in Jinju City in which we did the first conference on this topic. And at the same time, while I am investigating this, simultaneously, the Korean Academic Association right, came to Jinju and made a declaration. Said Jinju is the capital of Korean entrepreneurship, or the capital of Korean entrepreneurship, simply like that. And they made that statement, and I met with the president of Korea, and I asked him why, and he goes, well, because of what you experienced as well, the founders and everything there. And we, based on our research, we did it. So it was dual track. My initial research with my colleagues working on this, and the Korean Academic Association coming forth. So it seems like our stars were aligning, our universe were aligning, the international arm and the local arm. So we worked hand in hand, kind of like simultaneously on it. And I'll show you a little bit later what happened after we did the research. And finally, of course, Kishan Kim. I call him the connector in Korea. He connects everybody to everybody, and so it was a privilege working with him. So that's the context of the paper. Sounds good, everybody? Should we start? Okay. So, all right. Let me go. Okay. It works. All right. So as I explained here, a little bit is that in my presentation, I'll talk about the purpose of the presentation here, and everything around it, the historical perspective, a little bit of history of Jinju and the area there, and then actually give you a little bit of what I call kind of the idea of culture, understanding culture, Hofstede's work on culture. And we start with the artifacts, and then we move to the next level, which is values and beliefs, and finally the assumptions, which is the elements of Shine's work on culture. And so I use that approach, the research methodology. What are the artifacts? Which were the houses? What were the values and beliefs of that area there? And what is the current assumptions that are kind of underpinning everything we do, but we don't really speak about it. And so that's a little bit of the theoretical underpinning of the paper on this. Okay, significance of Jinju City. Kind of where we are with Jinju City. And as I mentioned, it's what we call now, it's the origin or the birthplace of Korean entrepreneurship. And that's a significant academic statement to make. When you make a claim like this, saying it's the birthplace of Korean entrepreneurship, you have to back it up with serious academic rigor, right? So, but I'm proud to say this, and we stand behind this, that we believe that the birthplace of Korean entrepreneurship is at Jinju. So for those that are starting to do research or starting to do this, this is something that you can reference in an academic paper, that Jinju is the place. And then this is the first time I'll introduce a new character to my presentation. I'll introduce a seminal person that helped illuminate or create what we call the birthplace of Korean entrepreneurship. And his name is Joshek. So if you're taking notes, if you're taking notes, this name will be repeated many times in my presentation. Joshek, he also has a pen name, Namyang. Right, so he has two names. In Korea, you have a pen name, right, and then you actually have a name. And trust me, at some point I was confused in the paper, who's who. And then Ambassador Ojun said, Ayman, this is the same person, but they have a pen name. So the small nuances that I mentioned that you learn as you go. So Jinju City has unique characteristics of resources, which basically help Joshek and what we believe create the Korean entrepreneurship. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier here, we now know clearly that Jinju City, as a fundamental point of fact here, is that they all created or helped form the four largest conglomerates, or one of the four largest conglomerates in Korea, which is Samsung, LG, Gold Star, and Hyungsung, right? And my earlier question here in my research paper with my colleagues here, is this a coincidence, right? It's just an accidental coincidence that is so unique, or is there something more to it? And for this, And the research paper was hypothesizing it wasn't just a coincidence. We were going for the null hypothesis, saying there's something more to this research here. Let me go back here. So who is this Joshek or Namyang Hosek? And I do this because now I introduce another character to the storyline here. There's two people in the mix. So when I started researching Joshek, I was told of another main character to the movie or to the research, right? And his name is Yi Wang. Okay, so now there's two people. So I'm getting more confused now. There is a pen name, and now there's another philosopher here. His name is Yi Wang, right? And they mentioned to me that they were born the same year, right? In the same area. And I said, that's wonderful. And I said, so, and they said, well, you know, Joshek is very important, but Yi Wang is more important, right? And I was like, why? Well, the simple answer is Kishan took out 1,000 won, right? All right, and he showed me, because his picture is on the 1,000 won, okay? And I said to him, oh, wow, is Joshek on one of those currencies? And he goes, no. So when you're on a currency, something's going on, right? And so my question is, why is one major contributor or philosopher, if you may, is on the currency and one is not? And this is where my investigation so now I'm going deeper and deeper into the philosophical research or historical research of who are these two characters and why are they talked about, but one is on the currency and one is not on the currency here. Simply put, and for purposes of not getting deeper here, and I can explain it a little bit more later, here is let me go to the next line here. Let me introduce Togi Yi Wang, which is on the currency. And I see you giving away 1,000 wons to people, right? So if you want to come to me later on, I will accept them. And so here is Togi Yi Wang. He was born on November 1501 to 1570. And the best way to explain it, they came from the same region, basically, but they diverged eventually on the paths or the career paths on what we're doing. But Yi Wang was the conservative philosopher, right? He was a Confucius philosopher, a follower of the original Confucianism, but he was extremely conservative, okay? The best way to explain it to academic professors, we are not conservative, we are entrepreneurship professors. So remember the other departments, you know, accounting, economics, finance, they look at us as not serious academics, right? That's the reality of it here. So that's the other departments, right? These are the economics departments, the finance department, you know, and the math department, right? They have history, they have origin, they're very conservative. And that's Yi Wang, okay? And Yi Wang eventually basically said that they have to adhere and stick to strict Confucius beliefs and studies. No divergence, no slight movement here, and it has to be as pure and as strict as it possible. So he rejected influence of Buddhism, Taoism, and he basically said we stick to Orthodox Confucian order. Okay, does that make sense? So, and therefore, if you see his studies and everything there, and maybe Ambassador June can shed light a little bit here, the 1,000 won is as strict as Confucius as you get. Okay, it is pure blood. It is as strict as you get. Okay, so of course, my question is, well, I understand history and I understand the importance of it, but my God, Joshek founded 4 conglomerates that represent major activity, economic activity in Korea. Would we not put them at least on some currency? And they're like, there's more to it. You know, there's more study. You have to understand the deeper context of it. And then let me go to Joshik. And he is also born in 1501 and died relatively close to Yiwang in 1572. So it's amazing the similarities that two major Confucius scholars were born the same year and died relatively close to each other. But there's more to the story here, he was a little bit different, okay? And from my research here is that he applied to go into one of the major academic institutions and got rejected when he applied. So he went back to Jinju, right? And he studied his own version of Confucianism, okay? And this is where the difference started to happen. He advocated for more advancement in the way we study Confucianism. He was not traditional Confucianism. What I would consider, and I use this word freely here, he was neo-Confucianist, okay? He said, we studied enough the original Confucianism, is to study it even more makes no difference, okay? We've perfected the study. And therefore, I would like to move to something called neo-Confucianism, which is using a little bit of more of practicality. So words like innovation, practical application, right, were things that he would advocate in his studies. Now that's huge, what do you call it? Scandal, if you are studying Confucianism, because you were basically saying it's okay to change a little bit, okay? And I believe this is the seeds of what I call what happened in Jinju with those founders. And he challenged, based on his understandings and teachings and learnings, he started to challenge the established Confucian order, right? And he said, no, I think we need to do something different, okay? Now, let me explain to you the significance of this. Because he moved back to Jinju, and because he started teaching this new form of Confucianism, right, he basically advocated that all the farmers, not just the traditional, upper class or people that are related to the king's court, he reached down to all the layers of society, right, with his teachings, and also his disciples, right? There were disciples learning from him. And the major significance of this, and this is something that I still need to sort out in my head here, is because of his influence in teaching, is that they were told, the leadership in Korea was told of an imminent Japanese invasion coming. And the royal court dismissed this claim, said it will never happen. Don't worry about it. You're just thinking too much, right? Japanese will not invade Korea. Okay, so the Korean court and the Korean military never prepared for potentially an incoming Japanese invasion, right? And guess what happened? An invasion did actually occur, right? And it occurred in the area of Jinju area. And the interesting thing is that the disciples of Joshik that were learning from him basically understood that they couldn't just sit and wait or not do anything about it, right? So the disciples actually took arms, which we're talking about farmers, we're talking about families, we're talking about not military people. They stood up, organized themselves, because remember, Joshik said, enough with traditional Confucianism, we need to be a little bit more modern, we need to be a little bit more practical, we need to take a little bit more action, right? So Joshik's disciples organized themselves, put themselves in a similar kind of, what I call it, what's the word we use here, in militia, is the right word, or what they call here in Korea, the righteous army, right? And they basically stopped the Japanese from invading. Right? So in 1592, the Japanese invasion was coming, and basically Jochik's disciples, or also known as the righteous army, right, basically stopped the Japanese from invading or entering Korea. And who the leader of this was a person by the name of Jong In-hong, and Kwak, Kwak Jae-woo, and all of those people, which are basically from the Joshik school. And this is a major, major Korean historical moment in which Korea celebrates till today, is the Battle of 1592, which they stopped the Japanese invasion, right? And they give umbrage and they celebrate the general that stopped the Japanese invasion, yet not a lot of connection that general was a disciple of Joshik, which then goes me back to my point. Why is he not on the currency, right? If he was the one that taught the student that stopped the Japanese invasion, we should give him more credit. Okay, so now you see there's a lot of disconnects happening here. But now you understand a little bit of those two players. Now the question you ask me here is, so why was one more recognized versus the other one? Right? What caused it? Well, a couple of things that caused it. First of all, the royal court invited both of them to go to work for the court. Okay, and so they said, why don't you both come work for the court under the king? And Joshik declined. He did not want to go, because if you go to the royal court, you're very disciplined. You cannot have freedom in doing what you want. And Joshik wanted more freedom to do his teachings and to practice. So he declined to go to court, which is actually very, dangerous when the king invites you to come and you politely decline. And that's number one. So that's the fact. But he also, as he declined, he also said that as an intellectual, as a professor, which we all know here, we get to criticize a lot. Our job as professors is to criticize the university, to criticize many different things, because that's just what our job is, to challenge them to make things different. You know what I mean? That's part of our responsibilities, to challenge what we sometimes see as not right or not appropriate. So Joshik used the same apply. He says, I will do it. I'll do it intellectually. I'll do it politely. But if I see the royal court or the king doing something that I do not think it's good for the people, I'll make clear it's understood. So he didn't go to court. And what he also did, he was challenging the court on some of the decisions. And I'll explain that a little bit later in the core values. Okay? But he did it in a very smart way, which is a very political way, never to challenge the king directly, but in a nice political manner to show how he can maneuver the conversation. But fundamentally, at the end, why Yuang is on this one and not Joshik is because of political maneuvering. When the king died, okay, there were two camps. One camp wanted the young son of the king, right, to become the next king. Okay, so saying it's by blood. King, go to the young son, but the young son was very young. Okay, and then another camp wanted the brother of the king, right, to be the next king. Right, so you have two different, kind of like Greek drama, or Italian drama, or Spanish drama, and which go. So it's like I was reading it and I was like, yeah, that sounds normal, right? They're all vying for political succession here, and Joshik's camp picked the son as the next successor, right? And Yuang, they picked the brother, and guess who won the political battle? The brother. So when the brother came in, anything to do with Joshik, anything to do with his disciples, were erased. They moved him out of the royal court. That's it. You're done. You stay in your region, which is Jinju, and you'll never be part of the mainstream of Korea. And therefore, it makes sense that you see him on the currency, right? Because he stuck to the king. This king won. So that's the historical significance of this. So if you just think about it for a minute, we could have had Joshik on the currency if it was the right political maneuver, right? We would have, and I wouldn't be here talking, and you would have been sleeping at home. So just to let you know, coincidence is bad on that one. But now you understand a little bit of the history. So now I just gave you the historical significance of this and the Japanese invasion. So Jinju is very historical. for many reasons. And you don't think of it as a serious location here, but Jinchu has serious historical significance to Korea, even though it's small. And that reason. So let me then move forward here and talk a little bit about the background and founding history of the conglomerates. And I think somebody said that they wrote 2 books already. Who was it that wrote 2 books? Okay, so she's the expert, and I'm just going to give you a quick portfolio look at it. And I'm going to run quickly through the founding people here because I don't want to be corrected here. So let me let me first start with the Samsung. Again, humble beginnings, founded in 1938, and it was basically a general store. But you can find all this information online on the web, and Samsung's website has a wonderful, wonderful explanation. I visited Samsung, and they have a nice digital presentation as well. Kishan took me there. And over the years, Samsung evolved into a global conglomerate, diversifying in various industries. So we all know that. So Samsung from humble beginnings, and this is the story of small businesses. They start very small, and then eventually some of them become global players. Then you got LG, also humble beginnings. 1959, it was established as Gold Star in electrical and electrical and electronic equipment, but then it's transformed itself. And there's always a theme: small transformation, big. Then there is Gold Star, also humble beginnings, and it was traced back to Hyman Jung's investment in Koo In-ho Lucky Chemical Industry, and the evolution also the group expanded into diverse industries. So you could see that these families or these companies here would start small, but quickly diversify. There is this trend of diversification and moving into different industries as well. And then there is Hyungsung, founded in 1962 as well, but it also it ventured into manufacturing and other themes as well. So these are the 4 conglomerates here. And as I mentioned, it takes you back all the way that they were all on the same street, elementary school, in Jinju City. So what's the connection between them all? This is now we get into the fascinating part of the presentation. So far, I've been giving you historical significance of it. Let me go to the next slide here. Joshek had really 4 key values that his teachings were. And this is where a lot of the conversation I had with Ambassador Ojun and Kishan and many people talking about this. And if you really want to understand Korean corporations, the Korean culture, the Korean people, you have to understand these values. And I see them every day playing out over and over again. And I'm going to explain them a little bit here. The first one is Kyong, self-discipline, and Yu, execution of Kyong, which is Kishan coined it recently as human-centered. Kyong can be defined as risking one's life to cultivate one's inner self, which is based on Confucianism, inner harmony, inner peace, inner control. And Yu is the power to control and execute the inner self actions. Right? So the willingness to center yourself and to create a focus of yourself, and then the power to execute. Joshek would carry a bucket on his head, right? And sit at night and sit still so the bucket doesn't drip water. That's what it is. So if you see a lot of Koreans, they have a lot of control and centeredness. You don't see them shaking a little bit, you know what I mean? They're always kind of in control, kind of saying, I am centered. And the more good you are, the more powered you are to do this. So when you're in meetings or you're in having deep conversations, and if you see them giving you very centered, very calm answers, that's what they're practicing. Okay? And it takes years of practice and patience to do this. So this is something very important that a lot of Koreans execute or practice every day. It's meditation in the Western culture, right? Deep breathing, deep in, closing your eyes and kind of calming yourself down, lowering your blood, your heart rate, and so on. Like this is what they're doing. So Joshik talked a lot about Kyong, self-discipline, and Yui, which is execution. Okay, the night and the sun type of thing. You need both together. Okay, so that's the first one. The next one is national, and I call it national, basically is Yugeg Amin, which is a spirit of concern of the country and compassion for the people. Okay, nationalism, in simple words. And this is based on Joshik's father. His father worked for the government, for the authority, and he would take Joshik with him when he was a young kid, when he was 7, 8, 9 years old, to the ministry or to the school, and he would see these farmers and these people coming in wanting assistance, wanting support, and his father will show empathy and take care of the people that are coming to the government for support. And this is one of the main reasons that Joshik didn't work for the king. He wasn't really focused more on just satisfying the king's needs. He was more concerned, or his empathy was for the people and the country. Okay, and this is where I said, you know, this is where his empathy, a lot of empathy was driven for. It was all about the people. We call this today human-centered as well here. So that was his second value system here. Korea is very patriotic, right? When a tragedy hits Korea, everybody hurts and everybody cries and everybody grieves and everybody heals together. This is core on Korea's values, and we see it a lot in national tragedies in Korea. When these happen, Koreans move together and they are all crying and comforting themselves. The next one here is, and I see this all the time, and I always smile and laugh when Kishan tells me this. It's Sangso, which is basically representing activities that the establishment needs to improve. Koreans criticize a lot, right? They criticize the government, they criticize the company, they criticize everything in sight, right? It's always criticizing, saying, no, this is wrong, you should do this better. This is not right, you should help more, you should do this more. It's not that they are just complaining. This is part of their value system. If they see something that's not right, they speak up. Other countries, if it doesn't bother me, if it's not hurting me, it's okay, I don't care. But Koreans are different, saying, no, take care of this for us, right? And Korean does this a lot. He goes, a lot of criticism, a lot of criticism. And I always say Sangso in my brain. And then this is the part where I think Joshik influenced a lot of people and helped stop the Japanese invasion, which is what we call Inja Yang Seong, or talent development. Practical, academic-oriented teaching to students. He would actually sit with the disciples and teach them and give them practical. Not just read and read and read. This was more, what I call it active learning. And he had 2 temples in Jinju, if you go visit, in which they built for him to actually work with the disciples. So if you look at it, Joshik's core values basically represent what I think a lot of Korean culture is today. And there's probably more to this. And the funny thing is, Joshik, and this is where I think the stars were aligned, was born on July 10. Last year, our conference in Jinju was exactly on July 10. I can't make this up. We were in the auditorium this is with the presentation, and I was presenting this on his birthday. And I'm thinking, I think Joshik called me and said, come talk and give this presentation with that. So basically these are some images that I just compiled here. And this is kind of where we are. So how does this tie to the lasting influence of Joshik, basically? This is where now I had to hire a small little army of researchers, because what we said, they said, okay, I understood the values, we understood the phenomena, but I said, you can't just tell me because they were born there and because they were, that they lived in the same city, there's more to it here. So what we did is we looked at the companies. And here, let me go to the next slide here. And we said, can we look at Joshik's teachings and the founders of Samsung, LG, and Gold Star and see if there's any core values that he was exposing, how this translated to the entrepreneurial spirit of the company? And finally, what are their ethical business practices? Because remember, Samsung always say, fix and do this. And that's what we looked at. Let me go to the next slide. So our team went to Joshik's core values, and then we said, give me a family tree of all the founders. And this is where I asked the mayor of Jinju to help me verify or confirm this. And that's what we did. We actually looked at Samsung's founder, and then we traced back all the way the connection. So we understood Namgyal Joshik, his disciple was Jung In-hu. And then we went upward to see how it worked. So we did a family tree, which I think is significant academic contribution, that we actually tied the Confucian scholar Joshik to each of the founders. And we did this also to LG. So in LG, right here, and then we went down and we looked at the different, and it's all in the paper with the graphs as well. So we actually traced them back to Joshik. So every time we would trace it back, we would trace it back to Namyang and the original, how that worked. This is my Italian side. You have to figure out the family tree. And that's kind of what we did with the presentation. More importantly, our paper continues, and I didn't add it to the presentation here, is we went to the Joshik's core values and we looked at everyone's website, every company's website, and we looked at their mission statement and about section and all that stuff, and we took the language from their website and we mapped it to his values. And believe it or not, after all these years, most of the values of Joshik are on each website's or company's websites as their mission statement and a company statement or kind of work ethics here. And that was kind of basically part one of our paper. And I will stop here. I didn't see anybody throwing things at me, and I kept you awake. So I'm done.
Yeah, thank you very much for your passionate presentation to understand easily. So as far as Korea is concerned, Korea is evolving every day. Korea is transforming every day. So comparing with Japan, Japanese company is very conservative. They wanted to keep their own technology, reducing cost, improving quality. But do you know Toshiba? Toshiba is one of the most famous Japanese company in the world. You know, Toshiba is going to be delisted in the end of this year at the security market. You know, Toshiba is going to be disappeared in the end of this year. Why? They are conservative. They wanted to keep their own technology. The analog technology is changing into digital technology. They wanted to keep their own technology. Do you know the Hyundai and the Honda is competing in the United States? Which brand is getting more market share in the United States? Hyundai or Honda? You know Honda. Honda is you like Honda maybe, yeah? The Honda, Hyundai, Kia. Which brand is getting more market share in the United States now? Hyundai, Kia. Why? Hyundai is transforming from traditional technology into digital technology. So then what is the reason, the origin? So you know you can find the Yi Huang and the Zhou Xi. There were two disciples during the Joseon dynasty. During the invasion of Japan, disciples of Yi Huang were so angry and so embarrassed during the invasion of Japan that they committed suicide. But another department, the disciple of Zhou Xi, returned back the all money to state, and then the raise the volunteer the army to fight against Japan. Then okay, this is the two paths for Korea. So actually, so any question, any comment about? Okay. So the police, actually, he is one of the other author over here.
Well, I don't have questions, but I'd like to make a couple of points. One point is that if you look at this issue, this topic from an international point of view, I would like to point out that this is not the first time that we are trying to, or there have been efforts to try to figure out the impact of philosophy or teachings of certain stream on entrepreneurship. For example, you think about Christian Protestant ethics on the development of capitalism in Europe, for example, by Max Weber. Or you can think about Harvard professor Ezra Vogel's book titled Japan as Number One, that came out in, I think, 1979, at the end of 1970s. So in 1970s, Japan was the single Asian country that came to the attention of the world when it came to entrepreneurship or economic success. So when Japan first came up, a lot of people thought that it was a fluke. Fluke meaning, Japan was copying United States in terms of semiconductor, in terms of electronics. That's where Japanese businesses made success in the beginning, semiconductor and electronics. So the technologies were not invented in Japan. Technologies came from the United States. So a lot of people thought it's just fluke because Japan copied them and copied successfully. But Ezra Vogel, when he came out with this book, Japan as Number One, he was saying that, no, it might not be just a fluke, because if you look at the culture, tradition, and history of Japan, there is a very heavy influence of Confucianism. And this Confucian teachings emphasize the importance of respect for order, respect for social order, respect for hard work, diligence, and social responsibility. And that might have to do with the success of Japanese entrepreneurship in the 1970s. So that time, it was very controversial, Some Western scholars were arguing that it couldn't be that, maybe Ezra Burger was financed by Japanese government. It couldn't be that. But after that, 4 more Asian economies came up, which we call the 4 Asian tigers: South Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. All of them influenced by Confucian culture. So it couldn't be fluke. If just it was one economic success story, it could have been fluke. But if we have 5 economic stories, cannot be fluke, right? So that's, what I like to say is that it's not the first time that we are trying to explain economic success story with the influence of philosophy. There must be something to it, as Ayman pointed out. So, but this is the beginning of this kind of, efforts to explain it by Joshik's teachings and Korean Confucianism in a way. Not, even though Confucianism is all over East Asia, China, Korea, Japan, but each country has different characteristics. So that's so this is only the beginning of such efforts, and I think there will be more and more studies to explain it better or to rebut it in a way. We need the rebutting as well in academic efforts. The other thing I want to point out is that on your presentation, Ayman, you spell Joshik's name sometimes Joshik, or sometimes Cho, Choshik. Actually, for Koreans, it's the same name. Whether you spell it as Jo or you spell it as Cho, we all pronounce it Jo. But in English, they might be confused and they might think it's another person. So it should be Jo all the time. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Here, in Zoom, Sylvia Roberts is here from Mexico, so I am asking her to share his idea. Actually, Sylvia, can you hear
Yes.
me? Okay, please go
Good
ahead
afternoon.
about your thought.
Good morning. I just wanted to say that I was very impressed when I learned about these 2 different ideas of entrepreneurship from 2 different perspectives. One under the Confucianism, and the other one kind of innovating, a very innovating way of starting or doing this with the same values, with the same characteristics. I just want to point out that I recently submitted a paper. I got inspired by some of the articles that were included in the book that we have when we attended the conference in August and in July. And one thing that resonates a lot is the human center. The human center, that's what it matters for everything we're doing, at least while I'm teaching entrepreneurship. It is what are the students doing with the things they are learning in the classroom, and how can we connect them with the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And the most important thing is not to forget that in order to innovate, in order to promote entrepreneurship, we need to understand that we are working with human beings and with different backgrounds. And here in South Texas, UTRGV, where we teach, there's a lack of connection. There's a bridge, a huge bridge between the academia and the industry. And so all the learnings today's, thank you, Ayman. You just brought me back to South Korea in a very nice way. And thank you for organizing these type of forums. It left a huge knowledge that I'm trying to promote at my classes with my students, and the K entrepreneurship, it is incredible how it was born in Jingju, and how all these different ways of transforming their environment are transforming us now. So thank you so much for the opportunity to share some of my thoughts. And I can't wait to see you guys back again. I'm heading to a meeting, and that's why but I didn't wanna miss this opportunity. Thank you so much. Have a
Okay,
great
Sylvia, thank you so much. Okay. Okay, then the next, actually, Massimiliano from Italy. Actually, he left his message like this. Thank you very much. The great forum, the very passionate presentation, Ayman. Unfortunately, okay, that is okay. So another person, yeah, from the Gyeongsang National University, Professor Jung, the left his thought in here. Okay. So any other discussion? Okay.
So thank you for your excellent presentation. Ki-chan briefly mentioned some difference between Korea and Japan. So I guess as your global scholar doing innovation or entrepreneurship in globally, do you see any differences you can talk about between this K entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship in other countries, any comparable countries? And maybe especially and also another question is, what's the role of government? You know, nowadays many government trying to promote startups and so on, and there is some debate about what's the proper role of government, and do you have any thought on this role of government in entrepreneurship?
Great question. So after this paper, I ended up working with some professors from Japan, right? And in the next month or so, there's going to be a series of articles published in the Japanese paper, right, titled "Japan Sleeps," and because it's been 3 decades now that Japan is sleeping in terms of innovation, and we had long meetings here, and the issue is one of the core values in Japan is, as mentioned by Ambassador Jun, is respect for the elders, right? And in Japan, it's very difficult for the young people to mobilize up, right? Their opportunities are very limited in terms of exposure, in terms of getting things done, even though they have a very robust and cultural scene in terms of business, startups and stuff, is limited at best. So I think in Korea, there's more opportunities for young Korean startups to hit the scene than in Japan, right? I think if you look at the track record now of the unicorns coming out of Korea are much, much more than in Japan. And the reason is specifically the opportunities, okay, in Japan are very limited. It's, right? And that's why the title of the article is Japan Sleeps, while the other countries are expanding here. So a lot of what I believe Japan is doing right now is they're doing a major transformation between government and private sector and academia. And there's a lot of momentum. Actually, I'm planning to go to Japan next spring for a series of talks to different universities about how to do it. It's fascinating how it works in Japan, because you think Japan industrial system is other countries, they're outside the city or they're a little bit separated. But in Japan, the steel industry, the textile industry are all within housing communities, you know? So you have a family business. On the first level is manufacturing. The second level is where the family lives. And there's 1,000 companies in that neighborhood. Small, but powerful. And Japan is transforming itself. So that's it. In terms of the United States, it's a hotbed of entrepreneurship, but unfortunately, it's either San Francisco, Boston, the corridors, you know, where actually innovation, not in all the country here. So it's hot zones. And in terms of Europe, it really depends on the country. In Italy, for instance, it's northern Italy, where most of the innovation is happening, but most of the small businesses are in the south. So again, I'm not sure about Spain or Greece, but this is how it is. So it's different nuances here. But the world is changing, as mentioned. It's dynamic. And so therefore, we're going to see a lot of changes coming very, very soon, in my opinion. Kishan, do you want to add to that more, or you're good? No.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. Congratulations to all the authors for this interesting paper, and I have learned a lot. So thank you very much for this opportunity. I was wondering about the government role, but Professor Lee has already asked about. And then the second doubt or what I am wondering is about financial resources. So because you have told us the story about this entrepreneurship in successful entrepreneurship in Korea. There is a kind of milieu or place in which there is something which is explaining even with philosophical roots or origins, but at the same time, in many countries, part of the lack of entrepreneurship is coming from the lack of resources, financial resources. So, for instance, the Spanish case has been very, let's say, against risk capital, because also there is a cultural aspect behind that. So this is my first, let's say, doubt. The second one has to do with the idea of what's something that we call open innovation now, but at the beginning was how open you are to the ideas or the cooperation or collaboration with other agents. So I guess that in the Korean successful entrepreneurship, there is something. This philosophy or these philosophical principles enhance the community or the cooperation with others. So there is something on that. So if you could please add on that. Thank you.
So what I know in Korea, because we just came back from Azerbaijan, Baku, is that in Korea, government support is a little bit more advanced than other countries and comparable to the United States. Let me be a very specific example here. In Azerbaijan, they started a small business support agency, which is tied to the Ministry of Industry. So they have technical assistance, they have training, they have one-stop government agency where you can go establish your company, pay your taxes, get your paperwork all in one stop. Very modern. And they give small grants to small businesses, $5,000, $10,000 to buy a coffee machine, to buy small things, right, to support small business. But what I know from Korea and what I've studied in Korea here, government has some extensive programs. There's something called the Sunrise program. I'm not sure if you all know about it here, in which the Korean government, some of the agencies in Korean government will actually fund capital equipment as part of your loan. You want to buy a machine, right? They say, okay, the machine is 30,000 or 50,000. We'll incorporate it into the loan that we are giving you, right? And subsidize it for you, so it's part of your loan package. So not only that they give them small incentives, but they actually buy the machine for you as part of the Sunrise, kind of like the Sunrise, right? They're trying, right? And help you finance it in that way. That's very advanced for country at that stage. In the United States, for comparison, they don't give funding like this, but the United States has no problem of funding. There's an overabundance of funding from angel investors, from all that stuff. I don't think in Korea we are at that stage of angel investors, you know, of that type of funding. But the government, I believe, is doing a lot of work more comparable to other countries here. And I think that's good. Also in Korea, there's something called the Sunset Program, in which people that have loans that the company is not working well, they actually help take over the loan that's like 30% interest. And they work with that and they sunset the loan so you're not financially hit, right? So there's a lot of government support. I think a couple of years ago, before COVID, they came and they showed us the different programs they have at the OECD presentation. And Korea sits on the OECD committee here, so they use a lot of the different programs that other countries are doing as well. Denmark has the same program, and Portugal is actually really revolutionizing the way it's helping small businesses. They're calling themselves the startup nation, in which a lot of the and that's smart of Portugal. For the young people, the government actually hired influencers. You know who influencers are, right? The government actually hired influencers to make entrepreneurship and startup a cool thing for the young people. So these influencers are paid by the government to go on social media to explain to the young people how to start a business, how to establish yourselves. And they saw a huge rise of it. So a lot of, we were in Finland. One time I was presenting 7, 8 years ago, or even more. I asked a class of like 50 people, how many people wanted to be entrepreneurs? Only 2 or 3 students raised their hand. I asked them, how many people want to work for Nokia? Everybody. Now you go back and you ask them the same question, how many people want to work for Nokia? No hand. Who wants to be an entrepreneur? Everybody's hand. And the students have taken over Finland. They actually taken over a central hospital and turned it into an incubator. So things are changing fast here, but it's a mixed bag at best, type of thing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I agree with Isabella. I learned a lot. And to follow up these two comments of Professor Kunli and Professor Alvarez, I would like also to ask whether, of course, cultural issues are very important, and I totally agree with you. But you talked also about the elementary school. And so I was wondering if you combine all this discussion on cultural issues with institutional issues as well. For example, how many people had access to school, and if there were institutional specificities that make enhance this cultural issue related to philosophy, because I was wondering and whether this is also linked to a specific region, and or is something that relates to the whole Korea, because you are focusing a lot on the specific region. So was there something in this city that we do not find to other Korean cities? Maybe these are just questions.
Yeah, thank God that was a difficult one.
Well, you are asking about the importance of education, and that's right. Yeah, it cannot be just philosophy and culture. There must be some institutional efforts which can be explained by education. And that's why when they try to explain Asia's economic success stories by the impact of Confucianism, that's one of the reasons, because Confucianism places a lot of emphasis on education. And Ayman also explained that one of Joshik's four important characteristics, Joshik's philosophy's 4 important characteristics is 인재 양성. 인재 양성 means human resources development. So education, obviously. And in South Korea, we have that tradition, of course, and I think also in Japan and China, they have that kind of tradition as well. And in the 1960s, when South Korea's per capita GDP was below $100, and in 1960s, half of all the African countries' per capita GDP was over 100. So South Korea was poorer than half of all the African countries. And even so, in the 1960s, South Korea's primary education enrollment rate was over 90%. In the case of Africa, through the MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, that were applied from 2001 through 2015, through 15 years efforts, Africa's primary education enrollment went up to 80%. It was only 60% in year 2000. But after 15 years, Africa's primary education enrollment rate was 80%. So that means even after MDGs, Africa's primary education enrollment was lower than that of South Korea in the 1960s, when South Korea's per capita GDP was below $100. What does that mean? That means that even if you are very, very poor, you still send your children to school instead of having them work, because that's influenced by this kind of philosophy and culture.
And one thing, Joshik, what was fascinating in his studies, Korean culture was divided into 4 sectors. First was the royal court, okay, which is the king's court, okay? And then the king's court basically were the untouchables. Well, if you're in it, that's it. And then you had the second court, which is more important, were actually the farmers, okay? And the business people, the artisans, were actually on the third. So it's actually reversed. And then there were the slaves, basically, here. And both 4 societies don't interact here. But because of Confucian's Joshik's practical thing, it disseminated all the different things, because the righteous army was made of farmers and business people as well. There were people that were taking arms against Japan. So you could see the influence going all the way there. So that's kind of an interesting point of view on this one. That's it.
Then thank you very much. In conclusion, Korea is a country who has grown with only spirit. There are no physical, no natural resource, yeah. But we had grown with the spirit, which is Korean entrepreneurship. So actually, Ayman, thank you so much. The inspiring presentation, touching presentation. So you gave a lot of the knowledge to other countries who wanted to study about Korea. And you inspired me. You inspired Korea. Thank you so much. Then we are going to have the picture together, because the PIC, the heritage, digital heritage is only picture. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. Yeah, we are going to have a time to take. Thank you. 감사합니다. 네.
And the paper, if you Google origin of Korean entrepreneurship, it's available open source.
김기찬 교수님,